come from a company which is a waste management company in business for the last more than 3 decades. It's an end-to-end solution provider. We operate, in Morocco, in Congo, in South Africa, in GCC, and we operate not on an end-to-end solution basis. Like we do the clean and collect, we do the city cleaning as well. We are into industrial hazardous, we are into biomedical, we are into waste to energy. Recently, we've been funded by IFC, DFC, IFU, CDC, all these renowned institutions for plastic recycling, bio CNG, used cooking oil. We've recently entered India, so Averda boasts of a manpower strength of almost 15,000 plus people all across the globe, and these 15,000 people come from 61 nationalities. So that is the kind of a cultural mix that we have. Now, basically, from originally a clean and collect company, in the last 5-6 years, we are focusing more on treatment technologies. Our entry in India has been in the midst of COVID in 2020. The moment the unlockdown came into force on 8th of June, I flew down to a place in Punjab by the name of Amritsar to sign the takeover agreement on that very day for a waste to energy plant. So, in India, our entry is underlined by the assumption that India is a country of high land mass, high population density and low land mass. And we have a very burgeoning middle class population. And our economy is growing. We cannot look forward for the first R of the 3R principle, that is of reduction or to reduce. There are aspirations, there are ambitions. Our villages are turning into towns, towns are turning into cities, cities are ever expanding, our GDP is expanding like anything across the globe, and so is our economy as well. So our waste is bound to increase. A very peculiar thing happens when the economy grows, that your disposable grow, your organic matter comes down in proportion, and your disposable, recyclable, and both non-recyclable, they grow. So management of that kind of a waste is very, very difficult. At the same time, the organic waste continues. India, now please go to the first slide. This is a brief, data which represents that, what kind of a contributor are we, as compared to more than 2 kg per capita in US or Europe. India's contribution per capita is just half a kg, and it is bound to grow. So our contribution is very, very low, but it is increasing. It also indicates that with the growth in the economy, this proportion will keep on reducing. Now, we have to have some kind of a system in place where we need to manage our waste on the day one itself, instead of elongating the period of processing. And so I'm a vocal proponent of growth. Growth brings inflation. Inflation normally is easily managed by the central bank. So growth also brings waste generation. The waste generation needs to be managed by a regulator, be it SBM or MAHUA or Pollution Control Board or CPCB or urban local bodies, but they have to manage it. Now, how to manage it? That creation of, economically viable and technically feasible revenue model with a bankable IRR is the need of the hour. That's where the private sector will come in, they will invest, and then the waste management process will begin. I was a major part of the team which implemented India's first waste to energy plant in Okla, and thereafter I was the business head in JBM Group when we did another waste to energy plant of 10 megawatt in Sonipat. We'll go to the second slide. I have very late. So basically, this slide shows a brief glimpse of the revenue models and processes and regulations of various aspects of solid waste management rules 2016. That one has to clean and collect, of course, the segregated one, and then once it is segregated, then it will have to have a composting on a RDF kind of a thing, and then eventually energy recovery. Either, I mean, compost in itself is a product, RDF is a way to recover the energy. Now we'll go to the next slide. Now, my presentation is very, very brief, so not 5, but at least 10, 12. So, minutes, sir. Yeah. So, now coming to the wet waste and the dry waste, I will first, pick up the organic waste, the composting and the bio-CNG kind of a thing. Now, see, what we've experienced in the past, that there are two types of issues. One is the size issue, the other is the economically viable issue, and the other is the management issue. So on the sizing issue, when it comes to source segregation and all those things, we've seen that it is very difficult for a large city to like Delhi, Bombay, or similar cities like Bangalore even, to on a large scale to do a very 100% source segregation. It needs to bring about a paradigm shift in the behavioral pattern of the masses, which in short term is short to medium term is a very, very difficult proposition. It may happen over a period of time, but not in the short term. So when it comes to organic or a biodegradable waste, first challenge is source segregation. Because for either of these things, the organic feed has to be very pure for technology to be successful, either composting or bio-CNG. Now, segregation is not only a matter of having, a vehicle with a compartment, 2 or 3 or 4, and doing IEC activities. What we have seen in the past, since SBM 2016 came up, or urban SBM 2 came up, they have been harping upon just the segregation of waste through vehicles and IEC activities. It is something beyond that. It requires space for secondary collection points. It requires space for waste shifting points. It requires transfer stations. It requires, FCTS. It requires mobile transfer station, and so on and so forth. Now, what we have seen is that the processes of ULB-wide infrastructure in different ULBs is very discretionary. There are no uniform rules and processes put in place. There are certain ULBs who say categorically refuse that we do not have a space for a secondary collection point or a transfer station or even for an FCTS. Even a city like Indore that we talked about, one of my friend only is managing that city and the bio-CNG plant there. So the second level of source segregation takes place on the transfer station itself. Whereas most of the cities that I have seen and I've discussed the proposition, and I have myself done the CNT in many cities in my various organizations. So what I've seen is that the authorities are very reluctant. They say that we do not have land for transfer stations where you require just, maybe a 20 foot by 20 foot kind of a space at few places. So now the other thing is basically on the composting and bio-CNG. While it is easy to do and implement all these things in a small city having an aggregation of 200 to 300 TPD, it is really very difficult to implement all these things at a mass level in a large city, say having a population of 1 million or more. Now, on the composting side also, there are policy dichotomies. Like, in September 21, government, all of a sudden they stopped the MDA, the Market Development Assistance of 1,500 rupees per ton, which was being provided to compost. Now, this is not in alignment at all with the source segregation objective of SBM 2016, SBM Urban 2 or whatever SBM we may call it. So, it is not at all in alignment, and it has been almost more than a year. They've been talking about alternate scheme being implemented. No scheme so far has been implemented. Now, from the market, there were many players who were banking solely on this subsidy of 1,500 rupees per metric ton, which was at that time $20 per metric ton. Now, none of that is available. So it is very difficult. On the bio-CNG side, it has been experienced in the past that yes, that 1 ton, 2 ton, 5 ton, 10 ton plants been implemented, but on an economically viable model is not available below 250 to 300 TPD. And that too a pure organic feed that is required, which has got to be procured from hotels, restaurants, agricultural produce market cooperatives, and then a decent degree of source segregation from bulk waste generators. I'll go to the next slide
Yeah,
now.
Mr. Amit, if you can show us your solutions, we are more interested.
Yes, sure. Yeah. So basically now this is the slide for dry and non-biodegradable combustible waste. Now there are two parts to it. One is the RDF, the other is waste to energy. While on the waste to energy side, one can easily go in for a mass incineration with complete flue gas cleaning system. My friend Mr. Luke has mentioned about Netherlands. Netherlands demonstrated the waste to energy plant way back some 30 years back, 40 years back, and I myself have seen a 2,000 metric ton plant generating 59 megawatts of energy. So that's a different ball game altogether. So in India we have low CV fuel, mixed waste, high moisture content, a lot of dust within the MSW that we have. So, but then at the same time, we have a lot of legacy, waste mounts all across the country. Now, what has happened is that while we talk about RDF, which is a source of energy recovery, but we have not really thought of its ultimate use. As per MSW Rule 2016, it has been mandated that the RDF can be utilized in the waste to energy plant or the cement plants, but there has been no obligation cost on them. Normally, the waste to energy plants are basically made to size. They are made according to the size of the city as per the concession agreement. Suppose in the X city they have been awarded a 25-year concession, the waste to energy plant will be based upon the size of the waste that is being generated in that particular city. It will not be able to take RDF being generated or produced in any other city as an additional or extra fuel. On the other hand, the alternate uses in cement plant has not been mandated. It has been in 2016 it was directed by NGT while disposing of the famous Al Mitra H Patel judgment, and they have reiterated in 606 of 2018 several times that in 2016 while disposing of that petition they have said that states and the ULBs will have to create market for RDF, and that was done in 2016. Now we are talking of 2022. Till date, no alternate policy has been done. There has been another case of Captain Malsik and others versus state of Punjab and others, where basically the NGT directed the biomass-based power plant owners that you can take the RDF as to an extent of say 15 to 20% of your total fuel requirement. Biomass-based power plant owners also agreed to take it, provided the state gives them some framework for the quality parameters as well as for the pricing mechanism. No state has since then done anything, and that was done on 1st of December 2017. So no state has done anything to frame those rules so as to use the RDF. So while we talk a lot about biomining and dump site eradication, all these will not succeed unless we have a policy in place by the state government themselves. And these are not the things that the NGT would do or the courts would do. The state, the policy makers will have to do it on their own. Coming to the waste to energy plant, it has been established now by the implementation of almost 10 plants across the country that for higher quantity of waste, say 500 TPD or plus, waste to energy plant is the only and the best solution in the country, in India, because these are the cities which are densely populated, old cities. They have better GDP, Better GDP means that they have better quality of waste, better CV of waste. The recyclables and non-recyclables are more, and then the combustible value and the energy recovery value is more. And then hence there's a requirement to immediately have a plan and put in place that any city which is having an aggregation of MSW, mixed MSW of 500 to 600 or more, should implement a waste to energy plant in the next 2 to 3 years. This will be a very big leap towards carbon neutral economy also, and it will also do a big favor towards the methane avoidance, fossil fuel avoidance, and alternate energy generation. So
18 minutes.
yeah. Huh?
18 minutes हो गया थोड़ा fast.
अच्छा. Okay, next slide. Next slide. So, so this is basically, very, very brief, like, we can skip that. We can skip that. Now, what is required again is basically, I'm just, my last line of this slide is very, very important, is that unless we have a regulator for the revenue and the cost model, other than CERC or the state ERC, we will not have a successful WTE implementation across the country, because it requires a tariff, it requires a costing, and everywhere the DISCOMs, they try to overrule, everywhere the state government tries to overrule, everywhere there is a tariff issue. So there has to be a regulator, independent regulator for waste management as such. It will not only, adjudicate over tariffs, but it will also give a standard costing and revenue model for RDF. It will give alternate revenue sources, alternate consumption sources for RDF, because only with WTE we can't manage the waste. There are instances and there are places where we have to manage RDF as well. Thank you so much.